Frank, welcome to the podcast. I know that I'm just dropping this on you. We're actually 25 minutes late to our start time, but I think you and I are busy getting some technical things set up today. So good afternoon, Sunday, March 8th, I think, March 7th,
March
and
7th.
March 7th, and the morning after UFC 259, I dropped what was it? About $70 on a pay-per-view last night. Worthy entertainment. I like Israel Adesanya. I like Jan Blachowicz. But somebody had to win or draw. But anyways, what's your take on this whole weekend and everything? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Noah. And by the way, I want to take full responsibility. I'm big into accountability, responsibility. If we don't take responsibility, then we're disempowering ourselves. If we're blaming other people, then that means that it's just disempowering. It's a disempowering mentality. So the fact is, I don't like being late. I like being well organized. Life happens. We are late today on my end, which means I have to do a better job of planning this. So I apologize, Noah, to you and to anyone watching for being late. That's a big no-no to me. I always believe that, like, people that are there early or on time, I believe that says a lot about, passion and how seriously we're taking someone, whether it be a date, whether it be a training session, whether it be a meeting, a dinner. It just says I value the other person's time. It's important to me. And so I really apologize. Today I had the privilege, though, of training with Jordan Worth, our good buddy, 10th Planet Brown Belt, who I've trained with for many years. Got to go to 10th Planet here in Henderson, Nevada. Man, they must have had 50 guys on the mat. It was a swamp. It was a sweaty, slippery, slidey swamp. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was nostalgic. I mean, it was awesome. Just an open mat. So, Coach Casey there was kind enough to let myself and a few others train. And it was very technical training. So thank you to Coach Casey, 10th Planet, and Jordan. I got to roll with Jordan. Haven't rolled with Jordan in probably a year and a half, 2 years. And I can tell you, as predicted, he's gotten a lot better. We're hoping that he joins us in a little bit. But yeah, so to UFC 259, I did have the pleasure of watching, great card, 3 title fights. And, I guess the thoughts that stand out in my mind, that Russian kid, Islam, I'm going to butcher his name. I'm sorry. These Russian guys, especially from Dagestan, where, the epicenter where they produce so many great fighters, they make you learn the pronunciation of their name over time. When they first come out in the UFC and they have 1 fight or 2 fight or 3 fights, 4 fights, nobody knows their name. You just call them by their first name. And then eventually, it's like you say, remember the name. That's like the ultimate compliment, whether you're Blachowicz or you're, Khabib Nurmagomedov. When you've got a complicated name, or Joanna J., you got a complicated name and people learn to pronounce that name, that, it's like, remember the name, right? Because some of these names are a little bit complicated, right? Adesanya kind of rolls off the tongue, right? That's a very easy, pleasant name to say, very rhythmic, a lot of vowels, especially for an Italian guy like me. But, that guy Islam, first of all, that was just methodical, because that guy Dober is a big hitter at 155. That guy's got crazy KO power. Islam, a Khabib protege, made it look easy with the wrestling, with the top control, with the submission. That submission, you saw that. Now, you and I have worked a lot on that head and arm choke. I'm sure you paid special attention to that.
I was savoring that.
He just went shoulder. It really wasn't. It wasn't the textbook conventional head and arm. It was more of a weight distribution and all. Instead of choking more with this part, with here, he was choking more with his own shoulder. He was planting his shoulder in there, and that was really tight. These Russian guys, the thing that's fascinating about them is they don't look that strong. They're not like bulldog strong. They're like what you see a lot of Russians that are like wiry, like Abraham Lincoln bodies, right? Like long, lanky, wiry bodies. And yet they look like guys that would be slow twitch guys, like slow twitch muscle fibers, but they're very explosive, very freaky kind of bodies where you look at them, you're like, they don't, doesn't look like anything special. I thought his demeanor, I thought his poise was amazing even before the fight. Stoic, classical, vintage, stoical Russian. So that one really, really stood out to me. And then, of course, Amanda Nunes. The Amanda Nunes train just keeps going and going and going. And
I got to stop you there on that one too. Yeah.
Huh?
Say your piece about that one, because I got to ask you, the former UFC employee. I got to ask you some questions about some of these fights as you go along through here.
Well, the thing with Amanda is, honestly, Megan Anderson, if you look at her physically, and I'm not going to pick on Megan Anderson's coaches. I'm just giving my opinion, okay? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or be hypercritical. There's a lot that I don't know, all right? I'm not in that camp. I'm not with the coaches. I'm sure that her coaches are very smart people. They love her, but that's with her physique, right? When she shows up and you see 6'1" and the length and the reach, and she's got the tools to be really good. She's got the tools physically to give someone like Amanda Nunes the problem. She's got some of the goods that you would want if you were designing a fighter. But it's like the whole didn't equal the sum of its parts. I mean, she looked mentally, let's start with mental, because you and I spent a lot of time on the mind jitsu. We spent a lot of time on the mental side, right? Mentally, Megan Anderson was a deer in headlights. And that happens to some people when they get, especially in title fights. She was a deer in the headlight. She didn't look super confident in when she first was in the cage, and Bruce Buffer's doing his thing. And then after she ate a right hand, it just looked to me like she just, she was a deer in the headlights. And then she got another right hand. And I understand that Amanda Nunes hits big, but you already know that before the fight. So you have time to psychologically prepare. You know that Amanda Nunes hits like a Mack truck. It's not a surprise. If you go into a title fight, you're going to get hit by someone. You're going to, and you have to psychologically deal with that. But I thought that something that stood out with me about Amanda was just mentally didn't have the mental fortitude or the mental makeup of somebody that's going to beat the GOAT, Amanda Nunes, right? It just, you could tell very early on, it wasn't going to be Amanda Nunes' day. And then technically she's a big fighter who doesn't fight big. When you're that long, you got to fight long. You got to fight at a certain range. And, you got to do things like using your kicks, even if there are side kicks or teep kicks, things that really protect your distance. Distance management crew is huge. Didn't see that. Anyway, Amanda Nunes made it look easy money. Amanda Nunes is a problem. Get used to seeing Amanda Nunes, because it looks like, I mean, what yesterday really, what it really did though, Noah, every time Amanda Nunes fights, to my educated mind, it makes the value of the appreciation of Valentina Shevchenko go way up. Every time I watch what Amanda does to every other female fighter, it makes you appreciate how Valentina Shevchenko is the toughest fighter of Amanda Nunes, in many years. And Amanda and Shevchenko is undersized. She's a lot smaller than Amanda. And yet she's right there with Amanda. Technically everything gives Amanda fits. And she's a smaller fighter. It really, every time I watch Amanda, I just like, wow, how good is Valentina Shevchenko, who's a smaller fighter, a lower weight class, and has had two really good fights with Amanda, right? And right there in one of those fights, like, how good is Valentina? Is by a measuring stick. Like, every time I watch Amanda, I'm like, oh my God, Valentina is just so awesome too, right? That's probably that third fight's got to happen. So that was my thoughts on that. Let me let you interject, because we can go on and on and on. You can give, maybe what you were seeing, I guess, in Islam, in Amanda, in anything else, and then I'll start talking about Israel, and then the Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling.
So, in the past we've talked about the role of the jab. I know you're having a little you're having some extra oral decoration there.
We're having some stupidity and some parking lot stupidity.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I mean this is where you gotta get on the mats, people. We'll work that out. Um,
Yeah.
so in the past we talked about the jab and how.
By the way, poetically, I don't like there's music in the background, but right now this is my fight song. That's the name of the song playing in the background. Just by the way, very serendipitous. Go
All
ahead,
right,
continue.
all right.
Sorry. No.
Okay. So the role of the jab and how it's a difference maker. It's overlooked, but it's so powerful. Well, you brought up in our last meeting here. You talked about the calf kick, and I am convinced. Even as a self defense, it is so unassuming. It is so you don't expect it. But I tell you what, it seems like in a self defense situation, if you've trained that calf kick, the fight's over. Just one calf kick. You don't have to punch a person in the face. All you get is hit that calf. And I went into last night's fights. I did not have the opportunity to watch the early prelims, and I only caught one fight on the prelims, and then I was able to watch the main card. That's because I was cooking, actually. Um, but when I sat down to watch, I wanted to see that calf kick and just see how much difference it made in the fight. And man, and I wanted to bring up to you today, if there's any way possible we could train that calf kick as a self defense, that would be great. How do you go about training it? I don't know if that's something how. Maybe we can go back to
I've been working
Kevin
at
Ross.
them. I've been working at them, just shadow boxing. I've been working at them because, like you said, they're so effective. The first time they really came to anyone's attention was Demetrius Johnson, I think, fighting. I mean, I'm talking about mainstream UFC fans. Demetrius Johnson fought, I believe it was Henry Cejudo, and after like round one, there were other fights, but that was the fight where I really thought it was really prominently on display. And Demetrius Johnson, of course, was like arguably the greatest, pound for pound in the world, and he could barely, walk. And huge respect to Demetrius Johnson because Johnson won the fight. I mean, he sucked it up. He had Jimmy Rivera just fought Pedro Munoz a couple weeks ago. Oh my goodness, right? I mean, like I said, how much respect for Jimmy Rivera to continue the fight. Like you said, after round one, his leg, he went back to his corner like, my leg's killing me. My leg is killing me. So you're right. And Noah, how this translates even to jiu-jitsu is in modern day jiu-jitsu and in modern day fighting, you've got to make that opponent defend every inch of real estate on their body, from their heel to the top of their head. Everything, a lot of attacks in the old days. I mean, UFC didn't have there weren't as many kicks, whatever, or they were head kicks or a body kick. Now you're seeing kicks from every angle. You're seeing spin kicks, and a lot of fighters do them, right? Now you saw with Islam, foot trips, right? Foot trips, foot sweeps. Wherever you are, the guy's messing with your foot. He's messing with your base with the feet. Then you have people going a little bit higher up with the shin kicks. So the thing you want to be aware of, though, anytime you throw the kick, there's a moment where you're on one foot. If you're fighting a big puncher, sometimes they'll take one to give one. Some guys or girls will take the kick wherever it is in order to, boom, throw one back. And you're on one leg for an instant. And for that instant, your chin can be on an island. That's something you have to be aware of, is how quickly can you get that kick go there and get your leg back and get in the stance. Because in the moment when you're on one foot and that foot's in the air, you can be very vulnerable. A big puncher might decide, I won't check your kick. I won't get out of the way. I'm going to sit on it. I'll take it, and I'm going to blast you with my power hand. And I've seen that happen. Not necessarily with the calf kick, but I've seen that happen with other kicks.
All right.
Plenty of times.
Well,
there's something to be aware of.
Well, let me just interject real quick. I'd like to bring in Jordan, to the show this afternoon, so we can get his thoughts on it. Hey, Jordan, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
We're pretty well. Frank and I are talking about UFC 259, and specifically, we're talking about calf kicks and just
Oh yeah.
how calf kicks have become such an element in the Warriors' arsenal. Frank, I was a little distracted there because I was trying to get Jordan ready. Can you back up real quick and say and re-explain that?
Yeah, well, what I was saying with the calf kicks, I was talking about Demetrius Johnson, Henry Cejudo was a very prominent fight where we saw, the power of those calf kicks. Cejudo chopped him down early. Demetrius had a lot of trouble, but Demetrius actually came back and won the fight amazingly. But I was saying, what's interesting is even like in things like in jiu-jitsu, the calf slicer, as strong and muscular, the calf is a very dense muscle. There's a lot of muscularity and it's very thick and there's a lot of muscle, but at the same time, it's a very sensitive area, right? It's like you can there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like fighting. You could be very. Some guys are very tough to the chin, right? They're very tough. You can hit some guys all day in the chin, and they're like the Energizer Bunny, and they'll keep coming at you. You go to the body, boom, 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 and you land some good ones. Same guy, take a knee and whatever, and maybe shut down, right? So it's the same thing with a calf kick. Some guy that can take the chin shots and sees those coming. Some of those, the calf is so tender. It's such a sensitive area. And it's where your base is, in a sport that's predicated on distance management and mobility and moving your head. Well, you start kicking a guy's leg, like he's going to become a very stationary fighter, right? It messes with his balance. It messes with his distance management. So
That's exactly.
Huh?
Sorry to chime in right there, but that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it messes with your whole. It messes with your whole like brain to body connection between your calf. It makes you roll your ankle. It makes everybody roll their ankle. You think you're fine. It doesn't even really hurt. It's a strange thing, the calf kick, man. You think you're fine. It doesn't really hurt you, but then your calf, you can't put pressure on it anymore. It does. You cannot base off that leg. A lot of people you've seen, Chito Vera when he kicked Sean O'Malley's ankle rolled. It happens a lot of the time. Fighters are fine. It doesn't look like it hurts them that bad, but then they try and step forward off that same foot and then they roll their ankle. It does a strange thing to the lower part of your leg where it shuts it down. It just doesn't work anymore. Your brain tells it to do something and it just does the wrong thing.
Yeah, and the thing that I was drawing the analogy with jiu-jitsu, Jordan, where you're making your opponent defend every ounce of real estate of their body, right? You don't just have to worry about your opponent doesn't just have to worry about the head strikes, something in the midsection, something in the knees, something in you're making them. You throw in foot trips, right? Some of these guys are great at foot trips too. You start throwing that in, your opponent, it's very good at discombobulating and keeping your opponent off balance because now they have to worry about every inch of real estate on their body. And the thing with those calf kicks too is, it's kind of like I remember in football, Deion Sanders, right? Deion Sanders is one of the best cornerbacks to play of all time. And one of the things that shortened Deion Sanders' career, an illustrious career, was he had turf toe, right? Shaquille O'Neal had turf toe. Like, if you're a basketball player or an NFL player, like, and you get serious chronic injuries to your toe, it's a career-threatening thing. Like, we don't realize how even your toes, like how delicate the muscles are. So like the calf, and literally think about this, guys. The old phrase, which has been around for centuries, before we were saying kryptonite, we were saying it's so-and-so's Achilles heel, right? This is your opponent's Achilles heel. This is this country's Achilles heel. And it's like, it's just this little throwaway space on someone's body that they don't think to defend. And then the next thing you know, like you said, a guy's chopping you down. And the thing with the calf that's interesting is when you start kicking it, it gets worse very quick as the fight goes on. Like Jordan said, it might not hurt. The kick might not hurt that much. But after like 3 minutes, and this was a fascinating one that happened recently at UFC, guys. So when Jimmy Rivera was fighting Munoz a couple weeks ago, and Munoz was chopping him down, when Rivera went back to the corner, he was like, man, my calf is killing me. Well, during the fight, when the fight resumed, I think it was round 3, And so Rivera's calf is killing him, right? He's a stationary fighter now. He's having trouble putting weight. He can't throw his big bombs like he wanted to. He can't sit on his punches. So there's a point where Munoz, I think, kicks him inadvertently in the groin, and there's a timeout. Well, a lot of times guys will take that time. And I was thinking in my head, like, Munoz better get to fighting as quick as he can, because if you sit there for 2 minutes on a groin kick, the longer you sit, the longer you wait, the more that thing inflames up and gets worse. So I was like, that's a time where when the ref stops, and I'm like, no, I'm good, because there's certain injuries that get worse, and minute by minute they blow up more, they hurt more. Jordan, your thoughts on you, because you're a heel hook guy, you know all about this. It's very the same is true in many ways in jiu-jitsu, just making guys protect real estate that they didn't used to have to protect.
So yeah, I was gonna say it also makes the way you change your changes the way you check your kick, right? Because if you just check your kick normally, you can still kick right behind that check and still kick the calf. That's the crazy thing about the calf. You can kick right through the guy's check and still kick his calf. If you're targeting the calf, you can. If your goal is to kick the calf and not the thigh, a lot of the time you can kick right through the guy's check and still kick his calf and still do damage. And like you were saying, Frank, it really, really changes everything. It changes the way the guy fights. If you have to worry about that calf kick the entire time, it opens the entirety of the rest of the game up. You know, the guy that's not so worried about the normal leg kicks because he can check them. If you're kicking that calf out and he's worried about the calf, his hands are going to start dropping. And now you can start landing the head kicks and the normal punches, and you can start doing your takedowns on one as usually there as well. You know, it's exactly like you were saying. But what I thought you said was interesting is when he got calf kicked and then he got kicked in the groin right afterwards and he took the timeout. I didn't even think about how the correlation there about how he better get back to fighting, or else
you better
wear on him and attack him. I didn't even think about that. That's a really, really good. That's a good thought right there. I never even put that 2 and 2 together. So that's interesting to me.
If I had been cornering Jimmy Rivera, I would have said, "We're good, Jimmy. We're good. Let's go. We got we're not." Like 30 seconds, 1 minute. You know, some guys take their times after those groin kicks. You know, they get a breather. It's like, you know, you got to weigh it. Like, no, your calf is so bad that we just got to keep you. And the other thing is, once you take that intermission, a lot of times the pain in fighting, because of the adrenal response, because of the cortisol, because of the fight or flight, a lot of times the fighter doesn't feel that much pain. But when you pause and you stop and, 2 minutes of an intermission or 3 minutes, then you have time to realize, oh, damn, that kick to the body hurts. You're not aware of that in the heat of the moment. When you stop sometimes, you start realizing how much something hurts and it's not good. It's just not good for the brain. It's like, nah, let's just my brain was in a good space. Let's just keep going. Let's not pause. Remember, when John Jones fought Chael Sonnen in their fight, was annihilating Chael Sonnen, but remember his toe got stuck in the canvas and his toe's dangling at the fight. Now, John Jones did not know until the end of the round, and he looked down. At the point where he looked down, if he'd come out in round 2, he would have been a different fighter. Like, he would have been totally preoccupied with his toe, because then he realized, oh my God, look at my toe dangling. I can't move my toe. In the middle of the fight, he just kept fighting, kept going. And so there is something that happens sometimes. Sometimes it's better, even though we always think, well, you got kicked in the groin, milk it, wait, especially if the other guy's more tired. I would be the kind of guy to be like, if I think he's more tired than me, just suck it up. Let's go, because I don't want him to get a breather, right? So that's very strategic there with that.
I'm wondering, every time I see them kick like that, what part of your foot or your ankle or your shin are you trying to kick with?
You're kicking with the normal part of your shin you always kick with, but you're targeting it to the lower part of his calf. So your calf is kind of like a teardrop shape. You're doing it like the bottom of his calf, like bottom of his calf, top of his Achilles ankle, like Achilles heel. Like you're trying to kick him right there.
Yeah, right there where the insertion of the muscle is to the tendon.
Or a lot of guys go right behind the bend of the knee, right below the knee, right at the top of the calf. That's another spot right there too. That's a popular spot.
Okay.
But if the guy checks the kick, you typically go to the bottom of the calf. If the guy plants then you typically go right behind the knee.
Mm.
Yeah, if you're a really good boxer, right? The guys, I mean, anybody can be chopped down with those, but you're going to see a lot of guys or girl, women, when they go to fight someone and that person is mainly or predominantly a boxer, because we've seen that, right? There are, well-rounded fighters that will attack every bit of real estate, but a lot of fighters are still more of one thing than the other. Some guys just love hands more than others. That's where their biggest threat is hands. And that's what we're seeing now is, if you're a really good boxer, you can definitely expect even more calf kicks, because everybody's just thinking, well, just chop them down, right? Like, now, the risk is, and I'm going to say this, and we haven't seen people pay the price yet, but the risk is going to be just the same with any kick. When you're on, as I said earlier, Noah, when you're on one leg and you are, for that moment while that leg is in the air, if somebody sits on it and says, I'm going to take one to give one, and has a blast ass power hand, boom, you can be countered throwing that kick. We haven't seen people pay the price yet, but you will see it. You will see fighters get knocked out sometimes, where a guy will just say, I'll predict that you're going to throw the kick. I'll sit on it. I predict you're going to throw it pretty soon. Bah! I'm going to throw the power hand, right? Right now, it's surprising, guys, because it's still new, right? It's still new, so a lot of fighters are still caught off guard, and they're just, wow, oh, damn, he just attacked my calf, right? Now, fighters are going to get more and more used to it, and not, in addition to just checking it or being aware of it, you're going to see some fighters the same as any kick. Okay, he's going to be on one leg. She's going to be on one leg. They're not going to have the same defense upstairs. I'm going to take a vicious crack at your chin, and you're going to see people start to train that. And mark my words, you'll see some people get knocked out. That'll be the game, the back and forth, which is, if you're a power hitter, there's a moment there for you. You got to take advantage of it. There's always in every adversity, guys, in life and in fighting. In every adversity, there's opportunity, and the opportunity is, hey, I think you're going to throw that calf kick. Boom! I'm going to take it, and I'm going to crush your chin, and you're going to be on one leg. And you're going to eat it. Pay attention to that. You're going to see some of that too. That's going to be a little cat and mouse game.
Isn't the weight distribution, though, you don't want to, if you're the counter, you don't want to go, it's not like a 12-6, like I'm going to do that. I would want to punch at a diagonal, because that rear foot, that base support, it'll handle this, straight, front to back kind of energy. But anything diagonally, they're already off. They're going to be, it puts them off. It's angles. Angles create opportunity there. Jordan,
So
go ahead.
So I was going to say, I believe you, Frank. I definitely believe you, and I agree with you about guys taking one to give one and just planning and throwing the right hand and catching that calf kick. But the thing about the calf kick is it's different than the leg kick. It's different than kicking to the thigh. When you kick to the thigh, a lot of the times the guy can catch it a lot easier. And the guy can catch it, and he can plant, and he can throw. But when you kick at the calf, it's a lower kick, and it's a farther distance, so it's much harder to catch, and it's much harder to actually.
Yeah, I'm not talking about catching it. I'm just talking about if you can predict it. No, you're not going to be able to catch that kick. Yeah. You're not catching that kick.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so popular right now, is because you can just throw that kick and not have to worry so much. Now, I'm sure guys are going to figure it out. It just came out, so guys don't know the distance for it yet. I'm sure guys will figure the distance out. But the distance right now is different than the normal leg kick. The chin is pulled back a little bit more than the normal thigh kick. I think that's why guys are spamming it and throwing it so much.
Well, what I think one thing guys might do, I'm conjecturing off the top of my head, is one thing you might do is, again, something to train or consider would be, because this is the thing with calf kicks, right? This is the one thing. If a guy is going to try to chop you down with calf kicks, he or she is going to start doing that in the first round, right? People don't wait to the fifth round to start like, hey, let me throw some calf kicks, right? Calf kicks, they're going to throw some calf kicks in round one, right? They're looking to slow you down round by round, chop you down. So one thing to consider is, if you think that, this person's probably going to chop me down, instead of staying at that distance, close the distance quick. So if I predict you're going to throw, boom, I change the distance, and maybe I throw a hook, right? So this is what I'm saying, Jordan, where My counter,
Yeah.
my counter could be kind of like Johnny Hendricks had that quick first step. My counter, if I'm quick enough, is like, hey, I think you're going to throw that. Boom! I step in, I throw a hook. So you're still on one leg.
Yes,
you're not on one leg as long, right? You're not like, it's not like a body kick or a high kick where you're on one leg forever, right? You're on one leg, very not very long because it's a low kick, boom, boom. But I'm anticipating you're going to throw it early. You throw it. I as soon as you do it, I don't stay in that distance. I close, boom, I throw hook or I throw combination.
You move forward.
That would be something. I'm not saying for sure, but one thing a person could do in addition to checking it, in addition to just trying to counter hard with maybe a power hand, would be I'm going to close the distance off of your cue, right? I'm predicting or feeling you're going to throw it, boom. I'm going to close the distance right away. That's now you got to be quick to do that, but I'm interested to see what the cat and mouse game is going to be, since these are becoming so popular and they're such a nemesis. They're such a pain in the butt, right? Like they're a serious problem.
Change the game.
Look, not only are a game changer, like Noah was saying, they're such a game changer that self-defense one-on-one, you would be an idiot to punch, again, even if you were justified, right? You're justified. You can't avoid it. Self-defense, rare situation. You would be an idiot to risk breaking your hand. You might as well just sit there and boom, boom. And it's nicer to the other person, right? It's almost nicer. Like just here's a little calf kick for you or two. And then it's it's easy it's kind of simplified. Like, wow, you could just, you don't even have to break your hand or get the guy to bite your hand or whatever. You just, here's a couple of leg calf kicks for you. Bam, bam. Hey, are you cool? Calm down.
Well, that's and that's where I was coming from. Is that he's gonna do that. He's gonna do that hobble step away from you.
Yeah. The best thing about that too. The best thing about that is like normies as in people who do not train martial arts at all, right? Normies as in people who don't even usually watch MMA. Normies don't understand the powerful, like how effective leg kicks are in general, just leg kicks in general. So like if you, like I tell some of my friends who don't really watch MMA about calf kicks and they're like, what are you talking about? You're going to kick him in the calf? Like that's dumb. Like I would never fall down to a calf kick. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know, buddy. You don't, like, people who don't train don't understand how powerful a calf kick is. It completely shuts the leg down. So it's a self-defense situation. It's like the perfect thing, Frank. A person who has no idea what's going on would be so confused. They would be shocked. They would be like, why can't I want to tell you guys a story.
I want to tell you guys a story. I've never told this story publicly, but it's a good story, and it totally dovetails into what we're saying. Okay. So this was like, I can tell it now. For a couple of years, I couldn't tell it because it didn't look good,
You're out of the statute of limitations, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Are you beyond the reach of law?
Yeah, some stories you got to vault them. It just doesn't look good.
All right. Well, go ahead and decant. Go ahead and decant this one for us.
Yeah. So this was probably like 17 years ago, and I was a journalist at the newspaper. I was a journalist at the Review Journal newspaper. So I'm covering crime and courts and homicides and ambulance chasing and bribery scandals and so I went to the gym one morning, like an LVAC out here, which is like the most popular gym chain. It was like 6 a.m, right before work, and there was hardly anybody in there. This place is huge, right? Those places can hold like 700, 500, 600, 700 people. They're huge. So I go in there at 6 a.m. and I'm doing this like lat row thing, the row machine. Lat row. And, I'm getting up in between sets. So I do a set, I change the weight, and then I'm getting up, I'm kind of like thinking about whatever, waking up. So this big guy is in there, this big Terry Crews, like literally Terry Crews. Terry Crews, the guy's like 235, the actor, like big Terry Crews linebacker, huge dude who I've seen in there before, who's like the master grunter of the gym. This guy, whenever
master grunter,
him, right? He was normally, whenever I'd see him in other times, he'd be on the other side of the gym, but you'd hear him because he was just this grunt, this guy who liked to grunt and slam the weights and all the stuff.
The weight slammer too. Nice.
Anyway, that guy, this place is like, there's nobody in the place, decides he wants to use the machine. And there's like multiple other rowing machines. There's every other device you could want to use. He comes over, brushes my shoulder, right? Brushes against my
Of
shoulder.
course.
To change the pin. He's now doing it because I actually got up. I was right there, but I was around it. I had my water bottle. It's clear I was using it. He brushes me basically you're not using this. You're not doing it right. Whatever, get out of the way. And he wants to use the machine. And he brushed me. And it was it's 6:15 in the morning. And I was just, I don't know why I was not, I was cranky Frankie. I was not in the mood. And I'm like,
Cranky Frankie.
bro, what? This guy's just going to bump me, right? He just totally just bumped me.
Cranky Frankie.
And I was like, listen, bro, we can work that out. If you got, I don't know what you think, but you need to be taught a lesson. You can't be walking around underestimating people, bumping people. And he tried to get up in my grill, right? And of course, you don't let a guy get in your grill. You got to keep your distance. You got to keep him at bay, So I was like, listen, if you want to work it out, we can go outside and work it out, right? And so now that wasn't good, okay? For people watching, you should diffuse the situation. That was not good. That was kind of like Andre Galvao. We can talk about that. There's just things that we do wrong sometimes we have to admit. That was stupid of me. I was playing a game of chicken at this point, right? That was dumb. I should have de-escalated, got out of the way, just let him be stupid, let him be the grunting guy. But part of me was like, this guy is a bully. He needs to be taught a lesson. And I'll take him to the parking lot, and I'm willing to teach him that lesson. So we walk outside past the front desk, right? Past the front desk. And across the street, there's a dumpster there. It's behind them. It's a medical complex, and there's a dumpster back there. Nobody can see nothing. So my thinking at the time was, you know what? I'm not going to give this guy a way out. People can get outside, and then it's that hold me back, and there's 5 people trying to break it up, whatever. I'm like, I'm not giving him an out. We're going to go where there's nobody's calling the police. Nobody's you're not getting a way out. I don't need a way out. I don't need anybody coming to try to break it up. You want it to be on, I'm going to give you what you want. So we go behind this dumpster. True story, dude. This guy's 230. This guy's a muscular linebacker build guy. And I'm 31, 32. So we're behind that dumpster. And I remember I was wearing this black and red, muscle top and black shorts. And so we start lining up, and I've got my hands. I got to put the phone down here. I'm there, and I'm 150 pounds. This guy's 235, so I'm there, and I'm fainting and everything. And now, even though I was a grappler, I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, right? I had a lot of wrestling. I'm 150 pounds. This guy's 235.
Blue belt?
I was a blue belt. I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I had a lot of wrestling. I've had some, backyard shadow boxing, boxing. I've had street situations with boxing. But I was thinking, the guy is so big and strong, I can't just, try to, lock up with him or whatever. He's just too strong. So I can't do that. I'm going to have to stand with him, right? At least for a little bit of it until it goes to the ground and then try to get my chance. But I'm I'm going to have to stand up with this guy, and I'm going to have to move. So we're standing there, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm feigning, and I'm moving. And I thought he was going to be a bull and just charge me, like a bull in a china shop, but he didn't charge me right away. So I started talking smack like Connor. I started talking smack to try to provoke him, because I want to I want him to kind of take some chances. I want him to spend some energy, right? I want to see what he's going to throw too. I want to see what's he going to throw, how hard does he punch. I want to get some mental reps in. I want to see if I can go east-west on him, and he wants to fight north-south. I can start taking some angles and use my distance. But he wouldn't. I thought he was just going to haul off and just start throwing haymakers, but he didn't. So I started talking smack to him, whatever, try to instigate, right? So I throw, to this point, getting now to our story, I throw this, again, I've followed UFC, whatever. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 2 years, and I'd wrestled, and I've done some, a lot of little boxing and stuff here and there. I've trained and I've watched a lot of UFC. I kick him as hard as I can with an inside leg kick, and I kick him. And after I kick him, I could see the look in his eyes change. I could see the hesitation. I could see the doubt. 235-pound Terry Crews lookalike. I could see something left, kind of like Megan Anderson last night with Amanda. She ate that first right hand deer in the headlights, right? She was like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. Well, I could see that in him after the first kick. So we're there. I'm talking some more smack to him, trying to get him to I want him to throw. I want him to be wild. I want him to spend some energy. I throw another kick. Bam. Same spot. He drops his hands, turns around, walks back into the gym. Doesn't want to fight anymore. Behind a dumpster with a 150-pound guy. Did not want to fight anymore. I don't know why I did, but he's walking back, and I just am like, I'm going to go finish my workout, right? So I'm like walking behind him, and he's mumbling how I have a gun, I have a this in my glove compartment, whatever, just to show people out there too. You never know who you're messing with, right? He's talking about how he's got his brothers, he's got his weapon, he's got whatever. I didn't say anything. I didn't instigate any more there. I just went back in the gym, actually finished my workout, went to work that day, and I was thinking, damn, Frank, you're right about the news. You're not supposed to be in the news. You're not supposed to make the news. But I never forgot that, where I didn't even know what I was going to do to the guy, but I knew something instinctively in me told me, like, he's a big guy, if I punch him high too, I'm going to be taking some chances where he might clock me with a haymaker or something. Let's test him with the leg kick. He's never going to expect it. Back then, it's like 2003. This guy had no clue. This guy is like, what the hell? Like, big guy, but got a couple tastes on the inside of the knee, drops his hands, goes back in the gym. True story. Crazy story. That's how effective they can be. Yeah, people don't expect them. You don't expect them, they will wreak havoc on your mind. You're just like, bro, I don't want to keep taking those, right? Like, the knee is a very fragile. It's just like that calf. It can be a lot of fragility in the knees in the right spot.
So I want to know how I can train that kick. I don't intend to be behind any dumpster with anyone. But
not a good idea. Not a good idea, people. I'm not saying
Frank,
that's the wrong. Hey, let's talk about Galvol right here, because
Frank,
we can talk about Israel.
You were an idiot back then, by the way.
We can talk about Israel and we can talk about Peter Yan, but let's talk about the Galvol situation, because that kind of dovetails with what I was just saying too. That you got to say when you're wrong. Like, I handled that the wrong way, and Andre was at least honest in his apology. I like Andre. I know Andre. I've trained with Andre. We like Gordon Ryan on here too. But, you and I talked last week, and we can get Jordan's opinion, but you and I talked last week, and that's what I said, exactly what we said. I like Andre a lot, but that was the wrong way to handle it, getting in a guy's face, pushing him. You got to expect that the guy is just going to naturally feel threatened. And Andre, God bless him, honest enough to be like, I was wrong, and I forgive Gordon too. And I thought that was interesting, because a lot of people will think that, hey, Andre just backed down. But I think Andre does, as you mentioned, Noah, he's a very religious guy. And I think he knows, hey, my code, do I want to be known as a guy that's just handling it in the street? Or do I want to be known as a guy that kind of has a certain code that's, I will walk away, I will forgive, I will say I was wrong. And I think he realized sometimes his code is more important than fighting. Some guys, their code would be to fight. Like the Diaz brothers would have been like, the top thing in their code would have been, oh, you pushed my brother or you pushed me. Well, we're going to wreck this whole place until we get you, right? Andre's code, and he's honest, at least he's honest about it. It's like, look, that's not my code. I'm a guy that's, got a diff code. I'm not a I'm not a fighter right now. It's not my thing. There's other things that are important. I'm a teacher. I'm whatever. So I thought that was a very, it was very honest, and it was good for him to acknowledge. You can't just walk up on a guy, even if a guy's a jerk and he's been saying something about you on social media. You can't just walk up to a guy, push him, and get in his face and follow him, and not a good idea. So, Jordan, your thoughts?
So I'll be as politically correct, I guess. Not as politically correct, but as non-offensive as I could possibly be. But my Coach Casey, has talked to me about this a lot too. So I guess I'll just say what Coach Casey's thoughts are, because Coach Casey's thoughts are the same as my thoughts. The way he worded it was exactly perfect to me. Coach Casey was like, Andre just you know what I mean? Everybody has different views on it. Everybody has different opinions on it, you know. But in the way I seen it, the way my coach seen it, my coach was just like, man, Andre just doesn't know who he is as a man. If you knew who you are as a man, then you would never ever let that happen to you under any circumstance. He was in the wrong. He totally was in the wrong. He should have apologized for approaching Gordon, but the fact that he did not do anything after getting slapped twice is something that I think that he's just gonna have a bad taste in his mouth and a bad just regret until he dies. Honestly, man, like my coach put it this way, man. And like we're not gangsters or anything, or we're not like thugs or anything like that. But this is just how it is, man. And the way my coach said it, I totally agree. I totally agree. He was like, Jordan, man, Jordan. If anybody, there's only two reasons in the world you should ever go to jail, right? There's two reasons you should ever go to jail under any circumstance, and that's if anybody slaps you in your face or spits on you, right? If anybody openly in public spits on you or slaps you in your face and you don't do anything, you're going to regret that the rest of your life. And that's just, that's my opinion. And I feel like it's a lot of people's opinion. I feel like I definitely agree. Andre, in the beginning, should not have approached him. He shouldn't have put himself in that situation. It was wrong to even put himself in that situation. But if you are in that situation and a man slaps you in your face and you don't do anything, I just don't feel like I don't know. I just feel like a really bad look. Even if you're like a religious man and you're like, oh, like I'm going to turn the other cheek. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but so I see what you're saying, and by the way, anybody who knows me, I don't care whatever people think of how I dress, whatever I look. The people that know me, and even the people that have trained with me, know, like, no, bro. I'm not proud of it, but that's why I understand these situations. I've been that guy numerous times where we can go to the parking lot. We can just go to the parking lot. I've been that guy, and it doesn't matter what happens, but it's just not. I've got some of the Diaz brothers in me from Baltimore, so my code is very similar to what you and Coach Casey have. That's my code. No offense to Gordon, who I like a lot, but him, any man, you're gonna have to just kill me. You're gonna have to I'll just have to die. Whatever. It's not gonna happen like that, right? Which is why it's never happened. It's not gonna happen, but I think Andre, knowing himself at this point, like you have to know your code. We all have different codes. And I respect if that's his code.
True.
I'm not going to try to impose my code on him. That's his code. If he feels comfortable with it, then God bless. Like that's his code. Because like you said, he has to live with the consequences, whether that's, like you said, hurt feelings or it haunts him, or whether he got, let's say him and Gordon get in a fight and he twists his knee or whatever, he wrecks his knee, whatever it is, or he gets knocked out, whatever happens, that's his decision and that's his code. And as long as he's okay with that and he knows himself as a man and he's okay with that, I like him. I got respect. Having said that, I know who I am. And I know if a guy slaps me, bro, it's not like I'm with you. I'm with you 100%, and I'm with Casey on that. No way. That now, again, what happened to Andre, though, too, and we talked about it last week, Noah, Andre underestimated Gordon. By rolling up on him, I think what he thought is, I'm going to punk Gordon. Gordon's not going to want any of this and that level if I have it. And he underestimated him. And when you underestimate someone, you're not psychologically ready for what comes back at you. I think he was in shock. If you don't underestimate someone, then you're not surprised that they slap you, and maybe you're ready, and maybe you're ready to go. You've got to be ready. You can't underestimate people. It's like a sports team. You underestimate somebody in fighting, and they knock you out, and like Bisping knocking out Rockwell being, underestimating him, and then next thing you know, they wake you up, and you're like, well, can you wake me up? Can we refight the start, and I'll not underestimate him this time, and I'll keep my hands up, and I'll do it. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. You got to be ready. Andre, in my opinion, vastly underestimated Gordon. Didn't realize Gordon's one of those, hey, we can take it to the street, bro. I don't think he didn't realize, like a lot of people didn't know that. Now we know that about Gordon Ryan. He's got some of that in him. You don't just walk up on Gordon Ryan. He served notice. You don't just do that. But I'm with you, Jordan. I'm saying, when I'm talking about Andre's code, I understand it. If it works for him and he likes it, hey man, it's all good. Like That's where he is in his life.
Yeah, man. Gordon's from New Jersey. He doesn't play that.
Yeah. Noah, you're sitting back, and what are you thinking?
So we as jiu-jitsu martial artists, we need to go ahead and have presets. You know, our default.
So I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's Noah's thoughts?
I was just gonna say I like that. That was interesting what you said, Frank, about knowing the psychological outcome of things, and I do like you know, you've got to have. I'm gonna mute your mic for a second, Frank. So
Yes,
because of the background noise. You got to know what are your triggers. You know, you have to think through in life and understand what are if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And you know, like for me, physical altercation, I'm not going to stay standing up. We're going to the ground, and it's going to be head and arm choke. You know, I mean, probably that's not the best move, but maybe mount. But what I'm saying is, you know, what you guys said is, if you have a physical assault like that, if you're not outnumbered, I mean, you got to think, okay, you know, is this guy 500 pounds? Can I take him?
More than one person.
You know, there's factors, okay. But if you have, I think, if you've thought out these worst case scenarios, in the case of emergency, you know, Neil Strauss a few years ago, like 10 years ago, there was a series of books came out, and Neil Strauss wrote a book called "In Case of Emergency," and he talks about all these different scenarios. And this is a great thing to think about for every man, which is what are the conditions that would cause you to take the first punch, or take, you know, or to first strike. And you know, that's something we can elaborate on. I've wondered that for a while now, which is, you know, when now legally, you know, from a assault level basis, there's a number. I'm no lawyer, but you know, there's going to be some things going on. You know, the consideration of law enforcement. There's going to be considerations of your financial welfare after this, because you're going to be subject to a civil suit for damages. So, you know, all your assets become at risk in that moment. So you're going to have to think about these things. But, you know, is it worth it over someone spitting you? Is it worth it over over someone slapping you? Now that is obviously self-defense. Now we've entered the game of self-defense. And if you enter the game of self-defense, what is your game plan? My game plan is double leg, mount, and then diffuse it. Like, I'm going to put my weight on you, and I'm going to take your air away, and then we're going to turn you blue, and then I'm going to roll you over. I'm going to hold your hands behind your back. You know, let's go ahead and be all serial killer. You know, let's go ahead and have this pre-planned. How are you going to diffuse the situation? What conditions would you take to do it? You know, I actually, it is really good to be planning ahead, things like that. This week I bought something. This is not an advertisement, Frank, or Jordan. I bought a tourniquet, $16 on Amazon. I bought a tourniquet, and the reason I bought a tourniquet, I'm going to keep it in the car, because you know, in an auto accident, somebody may, you know, what's the one thing you can't stop someone in an auto accident? Bleeding out. So I just thought, you know, I'm going to be prepared with a tourniquet. Huh? But, you know, I think it's good to think ahead. Last fall, I attended a...
Oh.
Go ahead, what? What were you saying, Jordan? I made you laugh, I know, with the tourniquet thing. Oh.
It's always good to be prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank, Jordan, are you having trouble hearing? It seems like there's a latent effect on your side. Frank,
I
can you
think
hear me?
my mic is severely delayed.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? I know that my background.
Yeah, no,
You know,
I took you off mic.
I do want to make it clear because, you know, I don't want to glamorize, you know.
I'm not having trouble hearing. No, I can hear you guys,
Yeah.
but it's
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to in any way glamorize street situations. I mean, the thing is, the truth is, like, for me, I've been in a lot of street situations, and I can say that I've never felt good, even when things went my way.
Uh-huh.
I've never felt good. Like, I've never celebrated. You know, it's street situations. It's just like regular, the sport. It's a hurt bit. Somebody's gonna maybe get hurt, right? And I've never felt good, even when I came out on the winning side of that. I always felt like, man, how could I have managed my emotions better? How could I have avoided that better? How could I have diffused that? Having the verbal jujitsu or the verbal judo. I do feel like I failed a lot of times. Most situations are very escapable. And again, since we say fighting is from the neck up, so is diffusing things. Learning how to use your energy to calm the other person down or to avoid the situation, learning how to put my ego aside, right? There's a lot of things that have to go wrong usually for you to wind up in a street situation. And again, even for Andre, if you don't if you don't give the finger or whatever, or curse Gordon there, if you just shake his hand, or if you don't, walk up on him and push him, then that the dominoes, none of that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what Andre was saying. And again, I get what Jordan's saying. Now, there is a point at which your own dignity, right? Your own dignity, your own self-respect. There is a point, especially for those of us who grew up, rougher side of town. There is a point where you just have to protect your own personal dignity too, where someone is just humiliating you, just totally, and then they're being threatening and menacing or bullying you or putting their hands on you. There is a point at which, like, the thing with Gordon is, a lot of people think of him, wow, he's just a good grappler. Most grapplers don't slap like that, right? Most grapplers aren't heavy-handed. I mean, this happens to be one of those guys, right? Like, a lot of jiu-jitsu guys aren't strikers. They don't hit hard, even a slap. This guy does. We learned that about Gordon Ryan. We learned that, like, he's got heavy hands. I mean, he can slap. A lot of guys can't. And so, the only thing I can think is, he's bigger than Andre. Andre felt such power, and he underestimated, and he was just so off guard. Maybe he got hit in the ear too. Who knows? Maybe his ear was ringing bad. I don't know, right? You get hit in the ear hard. I've had my eardrum rupture before. It sucks. Who knows? Maybe Andre was hearing things, like he got hit and he couldn't hear. Kind of like if you ever shoot a gun and you're not wearing an earmuff or something. It's like, who knows? But I think that he probably did feel a lot of fear. But yeah, there's definitely, most people would react the way that Andre reacted, right? That's the way they would react. Like, wow, leave this guy Gordon alone. He hits really hard. Leave him alone. But you do have that rarer breed that are just like, okay, you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. I'm gonna do whatever I got to do to get you. I'm gonna get you. And like I said, every man, every woman have to decide what your code is. I can't tell you what your code is. And as long as you can sleep at night and you feel comfortable in your own skin, whether it's your faith, whether it's your spirit. The other thing Andre said, though, that was interesting is he said, I don't want to suck my team in this. I don't want it to be where, kind of like now this team versus this team, or these two teams see each other at a tournament or on the street or in the parking lot. And now there's a free-for-all. Now there's pandemonium. And then that sends a message. It's like, it's a bad name for the sport. Kind of like, even I know Nick, I've trained with Nick Diaz before too, love him. But, those guys, it's like, whatever, man. You mess with them wherever it is, it just goes down, right? And I think Andre saying, hey, he just basically, I'm not that guy. I'm not that. That's not my code. I don't want my team. I don't want them to feel like they have to jump in or they have to do this, or, for whatever reason, he has his own reasons that he just didn't want to. I respect that. But yeah, I know, I totally get what Jordan's saying, what Coach Casey's saying, and even me now, even the Frank who loves to diffuse things and loves to walk away. Um, I've been in enough situations to know that nah, man, like we're no, we're no. You're gonna just have to put me down, bro. You just have to put me down. Then I guess I'll just have to take, even if it's just I take my whip and you're just gonna have to do. We're just gonna have to work it out one way or the other. Maybe it's your day, but that's not happening. I just I'd rather, me personally, I'd rather, even if it means taking the beating, I'd rather take the beating. Now, is that smart? I don't know if it's smart. I don't know if it's smart. I don't know if it's right. I don't know. I just know that that's just how I'm wired. And sometimes I wish I wasn't. But, if you're not wired that way, that's okay too. I'm teaching my son. My son's 12, right? My son doesn't do jujitsu. He's done a little bit. He's running. He likes to run hills and stuff and all the hockey stuff now. He's getting a little bit into ice skating and stuff like that and tennis. He's kind of a softer, skinnier kid getting tall. But, one of the things I'm teaching him right now, my kid can run. My kid's not a fighter right now. I'm trying to work with that. He's not. I mean, he's not right now. Maybe I'm hoping he'll kick in. I'm trying, He's a really skinny kid. I'm like, running is an option for him. Nobody can catch him. It's like running's an option. His code's a little different. When I was his age, I wasn't running, but I wasn't fighting. When I was 12, I wasn't fighting. I was like scared too. 13 is when I started to fight back. Maybe my kid will have it. But right now, I'm like, what a good strategy for my kid if I'm not there, whatever. It's like trying to see if they can catch you. I don't think they can. Run. It's like kid runs like a champion, like a stallion, That's his code right now. It's great.
Yeah, let me mention something here. I want to mention like a historical tidbit to give some color. You're talking about code, and we're hearing this, and it was Jordan who I first heard the phrase Hindertucky. That Henderson. This mentality that it's they're picking on Kentucky, but I want to just bear with me a second. I'm going to say something. The Scottish clans, they're Highland clans. Okay, people in the mountains. It always tends to be like people in the mountains, but there was a massive migration of Scottish into the U.S. and they kind of hung around Appalachia, and so that you see this like honor code, this honor code of you insulted me, you know what I'm saying, that code, and it got into what is like hillbilly code. Well, hillbilly code is really Scottish clan code, and this and I heard someone talking once, giving a kind of a discussion about this and explaining this. But this honor code that we're talking about has roots like in American culture. There's a big part of that comes from the Scottish clans, the mountain clans, and their code is an honor code. And you have that with mountain people, where they're if anyone from your house harms my household, it's on. That's in Afghanistan. You have the people in the mountains there, that kind of mentality, of you harm my honor, we're going to go to war with, we're going to have a battle. And so that's passed down, and now in American culture, there's that vein. We have that influence of this honor code mentality of, if you spit on me, you harm my code. You've broken the code. And what happens is there's a clash between people who have different codes. It's a code clash that we bleed out on. We bleed out on. We're the ones who are bleeding out on this mentality, on this code. So look it up. There's a little bit of
I've heard
historical
that. Yeah.
Roots of our codes and what we're talking about.
So I definitely agree with that, Noah. I definitely agree with that code, and everything comes from. I didn't know that it comes from the Scottish codes. That's interesting and stuff. And I definitely agree that everybody has their own codes and stuff like that. But my whole thing is, man, I think that's like a universal thing. That's like a If you go to any man of any civilization of any time period and you slap him in his face or you spit on him in his face, I don't know of I think it's going to be the minority of people who don't retaliate. I think the majority of people are going to retaliate after those two actions. You know, those are two drastic, extremely disrespectful actions. I feel like it's extremely disrespectful action in almost any culture, or no matter where you're from. I might be wrong on that. You know, I might be wrong. I haven't been all around the world.
Well,
but, you know, I feel like no matter where you are, I feel like if either of those two actions, no matter what language you speak, we know what's going on now.
Let me throw this out there. There's an Eastern kind of you think of it as mysticism element to Christianity, because they say, you know, turn the other, if one man strikes you on your cheek, turn to the other cheek so you can strike the other. That is like an Eastern mentality, you know, of this, like, because it's to me, I think there's a little bit of Buddhist root in that showing of Christianity, because it's, you know, it's trying to defeat, it's this, what do you want to call that?
Yeah, but wait, we're forgetting that slap was really hard. I mean, from the
no, that was,
and most people,
that was
I don't think
outsized.
I don't think most people would take that slap
Powerful.
and fight back. I think
that was not a small slap. That was not a Pomeranian slap.
And get out of dodge. I don't think most people would take that slap. I think most people would be like, "Oh, whoa, that
was a
serious.
Woke slap."
Now, in the warrior kingdom, though, Jordan, where you're talking about, like, again, you know, yeah, there's that class of dudes that just, they're not going to take guff. Like, it's going to be on. But I think most people, you might be overestimating the bravery of most people, man. I think most people, they were hit by that kind of slap, it would just kind of wake them up. Look at Megan Anderson last night. She's an elite fighter, right? She's in the highest levels. She got hit by a hard right hand. She was like, deer in headlights. She didn't, you know, and she was just like a lot of people would be, you know, like, you know, and respect to her. But most people don't like to get hit really hard. And if we ever meet Gordon Ryan, if I ever train with him or something, I want to see his hands. I want to have him slap something just to see it. Like, what the hell? Like, this guy, bet you he slaps pretty damn hard.
Well, maybe that's his preset. That's also a preset.
Jiu-jitsu. I saw the Eddie Bravo advertisement. I guess it was in jest, but hey, get these guys to do combat jiu-jitsu. It's like, my God, Gordon Ryan is probably going to beat the hell out of everybody in combat jiu-jitsu with the slaps.
Let me say two things too, because I forgot to say these two things.
There, Jordan?
It has to do with your son. You can't hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Jordan. I hear you, Jordan.
Audio? No audio?
No, you're fine. I hear you fine.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So anyways, so back to your son, right? Your son likes to run away, and not run away, but your son likes to run. He's really fast right now, so you're telling him to run away. I was going to say, Frank, when I was 14 and 15, I started training jiu-jitsu when I was 15, but 13, 14, and 15, I was training parkour, and I was training with a lot of really, really like high-level parkour athletes at the time. I was blessed to train with like some guys from the MTV's Ultimate Parkour Challenge and some like Red Bull athletes and stuff like that. But these guys told me, this guy named Daniel Ilabaka, he's a really professional parkour athlete, but he was telling me that karate is the art of fight, right? Karate is the art of fight. Martial arts is typically the art of fight. But what is martial arts? Martial arts is self-preservation, is getting yourself out of dodge, is getting yourself out of the dangerous situation. So a lot of the times you can't win that situation, and you need to preserve yourself as a person. You need to get out of there. So parkour is the inverse of most martial arts. Parkour is the quickest way from point A to point B and the fastest way out of somewhere, right? So parkour is also a martial art, and a lot of people don't realize that. You have fight or flight, right? Fight or flight. We usually choose fight, but sometimes when you have flight, if you know parkour, you can get away. So I don't know. I was telling maybe your son would enjoy parkour. It's something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I'm
Also,
glad you mentioned it.
Back
Very
to
cool.
Andre about the code thing. I'm completely on your same page about Andre having his code and stuff like that. But I just feel like he went both ways. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna have that code and you're gonna turn the other cheek and you're gonna be a peaceful man and stuff. Yeah, yes. If you're gonna be a peaceful man and you're gonna turn the other cheek and you're gonna claim that that's your code, then why are you approaching Gordon in an extremely aggressive manner and not expecting for that to happen? In my opinion, I think he went to go pump Gordon, not expecting Gordon to slap him, and then he got slapped and then didn't know what to do, and everybody was calling him like all sorts of names and stuff. And so he's like, man, like what am I gonna do? So now he's claiming this code. He may really have had the code. He may have really had these revelations. He may be really apologetic, but there's no way. I cannot prove this. There's no way you'll ever be able to know this for sure. But I think he regrets. I think he heavily, heavily, heavily regrets not retaliating. I might be wrong, but that's just my
Well,
thoughts.
I mean, look, there are professional boxers like Mike Tyson in his heyday. There are professional boxers that are used to getting hit, but then when they get hit by him in the certain ways and the certain power, they're like, okay. I mean, Michael Spinks, the fight with Mike Tyson. I mean, watch the fight. Like Tyson grazes him with a punch. Michael Spinks, from the moment he steps in there, is looking like, give me any excuse to fall down and for them to stop this, get my money, and go home. And
You guys,
Tyson grazes him, right? And this guy Michael Spinks is a good fighter, but when a lot of times if somebody hits hard or they slap hard or whatever, and people get hit by it, they taste some power, and maybe people have a code, but then they taste, oh my God, this Mike Tyson guy hits way harder than everybody else. I don't want my warrior code today, right? Or whatever. I don't think I'm gonna win this one. I'm gonna abandon my warrior code today. I mean that can happen. That's human psychology, right? Like only the bravest of the brave are like, bro, I'm gonna go down on my shield. Like the thing for me coming from Baltimore was what I learned is. What I learned in Baltimore, this is where I learned that code with the Diaz brothers. It wasn't just that I wanted to be brave. It wasn't that I was this great fighter or something. I wasn't. I just learned that in Baltimore, if you don't fight back valiantly, you're going to have more problems because other people are watching. So even if you were going to lose, it was better to fight as hard as you could because you'd have less problems with other guys, with other bullies. So it was like everybody was taking notes. So that was the thing for me. I realized, like, wait, you're kind of sending a message. Every fight was like an audition to show other guys, like, hey, you can't just take from me. You can't just talk to me like that. You can't just treat me like that. You can't just humiliate me. Because if one could get away with it, 5 more thought they could get away with it. When those 5 got away with it, 10 other people thought they could be the doormat. Next thing you know, people are stealing your lunch money. There's stupid stuff. They're stealing your shirt. They're stealing your sneakers. And you got big problems. So I was just like, well, okay, I was smart enough at age 13, 14, 15 to put together, like, I don't know. It wasn't like, hey, I think I can beat up every guy. I was like 140. I mean, it wasn't that. It was like, there's going to be less problems if I fight ferociously so that at least everyone's like, damn, I don't know if I want to get into it with him. He fights pretty hard, even if he's going to lose and he's brave. It's more like sending a signal, sending a message to other people. It's kind of like UFC. You don't have to be the best fighter. People respect you. Sometimes if you're too technical, people don't respect you as much because you're too technical, you're too safe. If you fight with heart, everybody respects you. If you fight with heart, universally, every fan is like, wow, look at the heart. And that was really my philosophy. It wasn't about being the best or the toughest or whatever. It's like, look, let them see you have a heart. Let them see they can't just take what's yours. Let them see you're not just a doormat and they can walk all over you. That was what I learned, and it kind of got ingrained in my brain in Baltimore. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying it's right, but I don't know where Casey grew up, but in some neighborhoods, that's just you were going to have a lot more problems if you didn't have that code. You were inviting 10x problems. That's what I learned in Baltimore. I'm not saying that's for everybody now, but it's hard. It's hard to. The old saying, you can take kid out of the street, but you can't take the street out of the kid. And that's
something
like it's hard to take that out.
That sounds like Israeli diplomacy, by the way. If you hit me once, I'm going to hit you back 10 times. I take note.
It's not for everybody, and I'm not saying that. Listen, I try to be the turn the other cheek guy now. I try to diffuse. I try to get out of there. But there is a point of humiliation and threat at which you got to push a button and all that training or whatever. I believe that 99 point whatever % of situations are usually avoidable. And I think as martial artists, as guys who've been trained, we should be able to extricate and diffuse things. That's part of being a martial artist. Like Jordan was saying, even with parkour, like when to avoid, when to, get out of the situation, when to see it coming and get out of there before it even goes, like, don't even interact with the person. You can already see, like, you're not going to like them. They're not going to like you. Like, just leave the party. Don't even wait for something to happen. You know that there's troublemakers at the party. Leave the party. Like, that really is more of my philosophy now. Very much, but Jordan's in his 20s, so I think I had pretty much the same. In my 20s, I kind of had, a similar philosophy. I'm trying to diffuse as much as I can now. And by the way, Jordan, the thing for me, the reason I like to diffuse too is all that negative energy is such a distraction in life. Like, the fight or flight, it's not good for our health. It's so distracting professionally. It's, you think, instead of thinking about your jiu-jitsu or your business or you're planning a trip or whatever, now you're thinking for 2 hours or 3 hours about some argument you had or whatever. And it just drains, and you get older, you realize how precious every day is. You realize how precious, and like, why spend it mad or angry or, worrying, wasting your energy on it. So I like to really be very careful about what my energy is focused on now. And so I tend to not like a lot of conflict now. I try to avoid it as much as I can.
Yeah, that energy.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Frank. I hate conflict.
All that energy you're spending. No, I'm the same here. By the way, Jordan, it's great to see you again. I've enjoyed hearing your voice and seeing that hair. It's good. It's good to see you again.
I know. I need a minor haircut.
I got a great barber. He just did my beard. It is. You're right. It is such a waste to, it takes a lot of energy, a lot away from it. Now, if we've just gone through 2 topics today, but really, this is good stuff. I enjoyed you guys' time. I've got like 70-hour work weeks right now. So this was a little break for me. This won't last much longer, these long hours. But it was good seeing you guys this week. I don't think Frank, do you have any last thoughts? Jordan, your last thoughts?
Well, I would say, for me, it's just nice to, be reunited. Jordan and I had a little, we didn't train hard today, but him and I training together. Jordan went easy on me, but it was just great to be back on the mats, 10th Planet. And they had they had 50 guys on the mats. It was steamy. It was sweaty. It was awesome. From Coach Casey. It's great atmosphere. So I was in my glory. Like, again, I'm going to be 49 soon. And every moment on those mats is precious. So to be out there and just see so much talent, see the sport growing, and just, it's like a meditation just to be out there. It was amazing. And Jordan's gotten a lot better. So it was really nice to reconnect with him. And it's just great to have you back on, Jordan. You're welcome anytime, buddy.
And yeah, I was gonna say it was awesome training with you, Frank. I hope to train with you more in the future, and hopefully I can get back more on the show a little bit every so often, man.
For sure.
I like talking to you guys. I like being on the show. You guys have been doing an awesome job here without me, so that's awesome. I've been a fan of the guys, fan of the show. So keep doing the good work, guys. Anytime you guys want me on, I'm down to be on the show. It was great to see you guys.
For sure.
Thank you. Well, guys, this has been a great podcast. I'm going to wrap it up here. Every Sunday we try to get online on time, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. And Frank, you've been hard at work. We've got some guests coming. It is really not. It's not easy to get guests get their time. To get everything lined up. You and I have to move schedules. We gotta hold open times available, and then things don't come through. So I appreciate your effort. You've got a full-time career, and there's a lot of work goes involved, and I want to appreciate shine some light on your abilities to reach out and get people for the show. So I appreciate.
Well, we had Brian Caraway was actually, so Bristol Maroon, who's like, they got their show like a fixer upper real estate show, and Bristol's fought MMA and very prominent here in the Vegas community. He was there on the match day at 10th Planet. A couple of
interesting.
Whatever, your guy was there. They had a bunch of MMA fighters in there, and then they had Brian Caraway came in. Brian Caraway was in there. So Caraway, I told him that today I said, hey, we want you on. So he's going to be, the stars will align and he'll be on soon. And he's crafty, man. Every time you see Brian Caraway, you'll look over and he's showing somebody something about do this when they're against the cage, and he's got a lot of little crafty little veteran secrets, man. It's always fun to watch what it's kind of like Robert Follis, like they kind of think a lot, or Eric Polson. Those guys are, Josh Barnett, they're thinking like just different little grips and little things. You're like, oh, these guys, man, they always got a trick up their sleeve. So it's very, very fun to see Brian Caraway there. It was great. Great atmosphere at 10th Planet. I love, I've always loved gi and no gi. You look at my tournaments that I've done over the years, I've done a lot of gi. I've done a lot of no gi. But I would say at this point right now, I don't know why. I'm like, I think I'm liking no gi a little more these days. I'm liking no gi more. So it's just fun to really dude, we were soaking in there today, Jordan. That thing, I was like, we were soaking. It was awesome. That was a real sweat. I haven't sweat like that in a couple of years. I haven't sweat like that. That was amazing. So.
Good thing. All right, guys. Well, until next time.
It was fun. It's a lot of fun.
Until next time, I will see you later.
See you guys later.
See you guys. Bye, guys.